Good morning, good afternoon, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Q Software webinar. This one we're focusing on efficient and auditable user provisioning. We're looking how in JD Edwards EnterpriseOne you can really ease the pressure around this issue of user provisioning. And I think what you'll hear over the next half an hour or so is very much the ancillary but very important issue of how to empower the business, how to involve the business, how to use tools to make sure the business own this issue. We've got Mark with us from Federated Co-operatives, sorry to put the name right, and I'll ask Mark to introduce himself in a moment. And we've also got Trace Paul, who is our technical manager, who's going to do a brief demo. If you want to ask a question as we're going through, you should see the chat or the question box on the right-hand side of your screen. Just tick that little arrow and you can send us a question. So our objectives today are really to look at how to simplify this process of user provisioning, user management. One of the key issues we're going to talk about, which we'll show you later on, is the importance of using proactive segregation of duties. The issue there is to make sure that your security stays up to speed and that you don't slip out of control by allocating too much security to a new user or giving a second role which gives too much access for a user. But I think the issue that Mark is particularly going to talk to you about is efficiency and involving the business. So I always think of these things come across better from a user to a user. So I'm going to introduce Mark in a second. I don't think you need to know much about me. You'll know who I am. Trace, say something about yourself for those that don't know you.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Trace Paul. I'm a technical manager here at Q Software, and I'm also a technical architect, and I also help design the software. So, and I do demonstrations just like this for customers and implementations.
Thanks, Trace. Trace is in Orlando. Mark, introduce yourself a little bit. Where are you today to start?
Sure. My name is Mark Laxdal. I'm based here in the hotbed of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. I've been working with JD for about the last 20 years as both a BA, technical architect, some on the security side, also on some of the master data management side. And right now I'm the manager of the JD application here at Federated Co-operatives Limited. Looks like I need to add something about my soccer side, so I coach 3 soccer teams.
What age groups are they, Mark?
Girls U9, U11, and U15.
Goodness gracious me.
You guys added soccer stuff, so I have to join in then.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, what is the content? Folks, we're going to get this done in 30 minutes, so we don't take too much time out of your day. I do want to start in 5 minutes talking about some of the business issues behind it, and I will then hand over to Mark to talk about what they've done with the tools at Federated Cooperatives. And we'll finish with a brief 5-minute or so demonstration for those that want to see exactly what it looks like and the basics of how it works. So why is this an issue? Well, the way I describe it when I'm presenting to CFOs, CIOs, I do a lot of conference work. Some of you will be aware, some of you will see me doing these sessions at Collaborate, etc. Is that when you get the C-level together, they have a conflict, all right? And the conflict is what I call the efficiency conundrum. The CFO sat over there in a corner over there, wants to reduce the costs. He wants to make sure that everything is controlled, and over a period of time he wants to reduce costs. And software tools are good at reducing costs. The CIO in the opposite corner has this problem with skills. Right? Huge pushes from the market, let's call it that, to move to things like cloud-based systems. They have certain advantages, but they come with their problems. There are skill gaps. How do you manage security in the cloud? That's a big issue we're presenting on Collaborate. And the third corner of it, which quite often gets forgotten, is risk. You have a 1 in 2 chance of somebody committing a fraud on your system. All right? And the kind of frauds that get committed are widespread. Let me repeat that statement. 1 in 2 chance of somebody committing fraud. That's not ransomware. That's not somebody hacking your external facing web systems. This is somebody in-house. Right? And then, these 3 things come together and you say, right, well, how do we get over this in delivering access? Because the issue is that the skills to access the system and look after the system are complex. But we need to reduce access because if we give the wrong access, somebody's going to commit these frauds, and the technology is changing. So we have problems here building up in this core area of how we provision users. And it's here on this slide, you'll see from a research institute some of the issues that they see as important. The most common issue that is given to me is it takes too long. I did come across a customer a month or so ago where their average length of time to give access to the system was a month. Right? So if somebody's starting today and it takes them a month to give the user access, right? Completely infeasible. And this gives the user community questions about the efficiency and the logic of the systems. They get to hate the systems because it takes too long. Burdensome process, i.e. it is too difficult to do it. All right? And what people tend to do then is give access which is unwise. In the example I gave you, I said, somebody's starting tomorrow and it takes you a month, what do? Well, they give them a temporary access. Well, what kind of temporary? Well, when we give them this access, it gives them access to everything. So somebody's just joined your organization and you're giving them access to everything. What is the logic? Well, we have no other way of doing it. Well, of course you do. You create a process which the business is involved with, which enables them to actually get the access they need to do the job. So user assignment is a difficult job. But the other side of the coin is who is going to approve that access. All right. The access that you want to end up with is the right access, not just any access giving them the whole system. And what you need to be in a position to do is somebody, and it could be several people, need to be in a position to sign off that approval. This should not be an IT job. This should be the business saying, this person actually does need that access because it is their system. So you've got to have a process. Right? And tools, software tools are the only way that you're going to make this process work, particularly if you're going to take into part of this the segregation of duties. Is giving access to this user a second role, is it going to create segregation of duties problems? Because that is where the fraud sets in. That is where you become the 1 in 2 that you have given too much access and somebody will actually commit fraud. The final issue is visibility. How do I see who has access to what? How do I see what giving this second role will do? So that visibility is actually crucial. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Mark. And Mark, give us a bit of background, first of all, to your business.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Federated Co-operatives is kind of a small little hidden gem in Western Canada. We operate in multiple industries. We're a wholesaling company, manufacturing. We're in distribution, all that kind of stuff. But we're a pretty big company. We had last year $10.7 billion in sales. We're a little bit differently. We're not publicly traded. We're not privately owned. We're somewhere in the middle where we're owned by our members, the local co-ops who are owned by their local co-ops. So if you drive through Western Canada, any small towns, you'll probably see a co-op gas bar, or a co-op gas station, or a co-op food store that are owned by their members, and then that money gets fed up to FCL. And then we give that in return as patronage back to those local members who then in turn can support the local communities. So the cycle just continues on and we're always giving back. So next slide there, Mike. Like I said, we're in a lot of different industries here. We got our hands into the food stores. We have close to 300 food stores themselves. We have some home and agro centers or home centers where you can buy wood, lumber, all that kind of stuff. We have close to 400 gas bars and C-stores where you can buy gas. We have a huge refinery down in Regina right now that produces a lot of that gas. We have some commercial car locks as well, some agro stores where you can buy your fertilizer, any supporting the farmers when they need fertilizer or any feed, that kind of stuff. We also have several hundred liquor stores as well that we're into. So we're a very diverse company in Western Canada with many different product lines. Within JDE itself, so we have gone through a major transformation here at FCL. We're about 30, 40 years behind when I started. So they have moved from the mainframe system of everything to the latest and greatest in JDE 9.2. We had two major go lives within 4 weeks of each other about 6 months ago. One was core financials, and the other was for a refinery down in Regina, doing manufacturing, inventory, procurement, work orders, all that kind of stuff. We used Q Software was the security tool of choice to do all the roles and components. We had some consultants from our friends at ERP1 Consulting come in and help us and help design those and implement those. Each project themselves had close to 1,200 user accounts. So in total, we had probably 2,500 user accounts to get set up, roles to provision, initial loads, all that kind of stuff. As part of that as well, we've done something unique around here. We have hired a dedicated JDE security and UX, user experience analyst, to help us with this, because it's a full-time role, not just something that sits off the side of the CNC desk. We wanted to give visibility to the security itself, because there's a big piece of this world from fraud and roles and all that kind of stuff. So one of the key things that we wanted to work on was trying to streamline the business processes with regards to security itself, make it very simple. There was a lot of paper processes, there was bottlenecks. We had to remove those kind of processes. In the old way, the user provisioning was very manual because we were on a mainframe before. So if somebody wanted access to a mainframe application, they would just fill out a piece of paperwork, check off a box, and they would get full access to that small little application. It was a culture change here. We had to move to, supposed to saying you get access to JDE. Now you had to say role-based access control. So which roles within JDE? So this is where the components came in, and segregating the duties so you don't get access to everything, because somebody down at the refinery doesn't need access to see all the financial piece. So we had to do different roles, which is really good. One of the benefits of this is that it enabled our business users. So they had some power as to what roles and what components and applications and programs within JDE they got access to, which really helped them from that side. It also provided a little bit of fraud segregation of duties inside. We haven't done a lot in that space yet, but the initial talks have already been underway. They got pure visibility to what access they already have within the system as well. So they know exactly what programs they have access to, what to test, what their job entails, their business process. So it helped them define their business process as well. And it also gave the users some responsibility, and the user management, the managers had some responsibility in their area. So treasury versus tax, they all had different responsibilities. Of course, with the project, everyone just initially was concerned about the initial go live of loading the 1,200 accounts, and then they didn't really think of the operational piece afterwards. And that's where our area and our director was on top of it and had thought about doing this, using this user access manager, so the users could provision their own access within the tool. So the business owns the JD system. They make the decision about who should get access. It's not an IT function, like Mike was saying earlier. It's up to the business to say, if hired a new accounts payable technician, they should get the following roles to do their job. What it also allows us to do is it gives us all the information. So we know they need an address book record, we know they need their name spelled correctly, and we know what roles they want to get. Prior to that, they just kind of spell out a name on a piece of paper and say, I need access to JD, and it's up to IT to figure out the rest. There's no address book record or roles or who's approving that access or anything like that. So we have everything when it comes in a nice little bundle. The users can submit their own requests. We've just created a composed page within JDE, so the users are already in JDE. They can just flip to the next page and do the request when they need to. They don't have to log out and go to another tool. There is an approval process as well, so you can do a requester and approver which is nice so that we can track when things are approved. And the last benefit from this is that it's improved a lot of the relationships. So people have worked with our security analyst and, developed those relationships. So now we have a insight into the user experience. We can improve their processes, understand how things work, and they get a positive relationship with IT, which is a good thing. So what this slide is just wanted to show some of the user metrics for the last 3 months that we've done here at FCL. This just shows the number of requests that we've been getting and how fast we typically turn them around. We can typically turn around most requests within 4 hours for sure. Some of the ones that you're seeing 4 to 8 hours or anything longer than 8 hours is typically because they submit them overnight. But the perception of how long does it take to get access to the JD application now has gone down significantly. It's no longer days, it's now hours. From the time the full approved request hits our desk, we can have it turned around well within 4 hours for most of them. So this is just proven that, this process is fully audited. We can track that, we can share this information, and users are quite happy and don't have an issue with getting access to JD. We're typically finding that the holdup is on their side. They maybe their person hasn't submitted the actual request to JD yet, and we haven't received it yet. So that's where the holdup is. It's not sitting lost paperwork or IT's being slow. It's positive relationships. Yes, and so the last couple outcomes of this is that our auditors are very happy with this because it's fully audited. So we can track when it was requested, when it was approved, and when we actually completed that request. We have it's in the table, so we can pull out all that information. The users feel that they have some control about who's getting that access. They can make that decision whenever they want to. And lastly, for our company, this is quite innovative for us. Like I said, we're a very paper-based company, so having something where it's in this application, online, fully audited, no paper, is groundbreaking for FCL here. So big win for us on the JD side and Q Software as well.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was excellent. We'll ask you to come back and summarise at the end.
Sure.
But I think it's probably worth in these circumstances. A number of people will be sat on this session thinking, well, what does it look like? I will warn you that Trace loves this product, and he could easily spend the next hour and a half showing it to you, but I've given him five or 6 minutes to just touch on it. But to just give you a little bit of background, visibility is everything in tools like this, all right? And we do have other tools that feed into this. I'll talk at the end about some other webinars we've got coming up. But the periodic access review is worth mentioning. That is the process which almost all of you will go through at least annually. Some call it user certification. And that's about getting the business to sign off access. So it's the other side of this process, all right? And we have a tool which plugs in to enable this, to automate that, all right? We have tools to enable you to look at things like risk, i.e. your SOD issues. But once more, we've got sessions on that. So what does UAM, User Admin Manager, actually do? It allows provisioning. It sets up this approver. And there's a workflow around all of this, which is absolutely crucial. So the setup work is all about allocating approvers. All right? And Trace will show you that. But, it might take you half a day to get that set up in the first instance for the first run. All right? But it also, on top of this, enables you to run an optional SOD check before you allocate a role to a user. Check and see whether that's going to create any SOD issues. This is the proactive SOD that we talk about, and then ensuring that you don't accidentally give access that is too wide by giving a second role that overlays on top of the first role. Very difficult to see that visibility without this kind of tool. And then there are a number of other tools that the technology people like a great deal. Batch upload, which is good if you're going into a new rollout or a new division, and levers, etc., which we won't dwell on too much today, I don't think. Just the final thing, then when you set it up, you set up approvers for each role. This is very flexible now. We put in new functionality around this. But somebody logs in, requests a role for a user, goes into pending, and then the approver concerned will get, for that role, will get a notification via email, and they look at it. They can take this option of running an SOD check, yes or no. If it fails the SOD check, this will come back to the requester and say, what do you want to do about it? If you want to put in mitigation, they can do. If it passes, it goes to the assigner, and the person will then allocate the role to the user. All right. Mitigation, as I said, is an option if it's failed that SOD check. So it's a fairly straightforward process, but there are some fairly interesting options in there. The final stage, at the bottom being that you get a notification back to say, right, it's been done. But rather than me witter on any further, Trace, why don't you show these good folk how this works?
Yep. Okay. So on my screen, what you're seeing is sort of the main landing page for Q Software and JD Edwards, and again, completely integrated with JD Edwards. The first thing I'll talk about here is the configuration of the tool so that it can adapt to your specific user provisioning process. So if we go into the options, you'll have the option of actually designating your approvers, and approvers can be designated for roles or users. So if you have a manager that has that's responsible, specifically for users requesting roles, then you can assign that particular manager to all of those users. Or if you want to assign a manager to own all of the AP roles or so on, you could do that as well. So if I click on that role approvers part of the application, here you can see that I can configure it to be, in this case, you're seeing like we've got these set up to be star all. So what that means is that every role request that comes in will go to these people, and then any one of them can approve it. It doesn't require all 4 of them to approve it. You can also have multiple approvers for the same users or same role. So all of that flexibility is built in there for you. You also have the ability to configure how that request processes through your role request process. So if I click on this maintain role status activity rules, it breaks up these requests for roles into 3 different categories. Either you're requesting a role like a new request, you're requesting a role to be removed, or you're requesting a role to expire at a certain date. So you can configure those 3 kind of workflows here, and we've got a default one built in here for you. And these statuses, whether it goes from pending approval to approve to assign, you can decide how you want that to flow through your system, and you can also decide when you want that SOD check to occur. If you want it to occur when it goes from requested to pending, that can be configured. Also, when a ticket number is required, when comments are required, those things can all be configured within that part of the tool as well. Once you do that, it's ready to go, and then the end users can, right from the tool, enter a request. So any user could go in and request a role, but whatever role they request, or based on who the user is, it will then get routed to the corresponding approver for that request. So in an example really quickly here, if I type in request and I go here, it recognizes who's making the request. I can say that I want to request that Mike gets a role, and I can look up here in mentee soup. Hopefully I haven't assigned that to him already. Probably have, so I'll have to pick a different one. Let's see if I got one here, AR soup. Cool. And then I can either put an end date on it, I can put a ticket number in there, and I can also put some comments in there, test. And I can enter in as many requests at a time as I want. So if I want to fill out 10 requests for Mike, or I want to just fill out multiple requests for multiple users, as the requester, I can do that. Once I'm done with that, as soon as I click on that check mark, it's actually going to go ahead and run an SOD check. And so you'll notice here on the left side, it's running that SOD check just because that's how I have mine configured. And once that SOD check finishes, the person that's going to get notified, that Mike requested a role, will get notified by email. And here's one I put in earlier. and it's going to give me all the information I need to decide whether I should approve or reject Mike's SOD status. And so this one here, I had it where it didn't actually run the SOD, but it'll tell you like that they failed, didn't fail, or that it passed. And then from there, if you wanted to just approve it or reject it from the email, you could do it just by clicking on either one of those links. Now, if the approver wants to also, though, they can come in to JD Edwards here. They would have access to this manage role requests application as an approver. And now they can come in here and have a look at any of the role requests that they're responsible for. And so you see this one here was the latest one I did where Mike passed. If I wanted to rerun my SOD check, I could do it from right here. I can set it up to expire. There are lots of bells and whistles on the tool, but basically you can, if you've got SOD violations, you can view those here so you can decide what you want to do. And then at that point, if I want to start advancing this through that process to approved or to finally to assigned, that whole process again is automated so that at the end of the day, you're not having to send another message to your CNC to go into another application and actually manually do the assignment. The process will actually do that assignment for you, if you've approved it and assigned it from the application. And as Mark was telling you before, it's going to keep a full audit trail of that, everything that was done in this role status inquiry screen. If I click on that and I do a find here, I can see that everything that I've done with Mike Ward is going to capture every role or status approval that it's gone through, and it's going to capture who actually did it and who actually took the last action, who requested it, who approved it, who assigned it, and so on. So you got a full audit trail of the process also built in there. Again, as Mike said, there are lots of bells and whistles, and we could talk about this for probably an hour at least, but those are the kind of the main features in that role requesting process. And as you can notice there as well, there are all these other great tools that are built in to User Admin Manager. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that in the upcoming release, there'll be a button right here that says copy or request all the roles from one user to be actually granted to or requested for another user. And what it will automatically do is if I say, hey, I want all the roles that Mike Ward has, it'll take all those roles and it'll automatically put the requests in for those roles for the user you're requesting them for. So that's another great feature that's coming out here very shortly. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Mike.
Trace, we have a question here from Robert, which is, we have different approvers for roles based on the business unit they are associated with. Therefore, we do not have one approver. Can we cope with that? How would you cope with that?
Yeah, you can have multiple approvers, depending, if you want to have multiple approvers for the same roles, you can do that. Or if it's based on users, you can do that. But there's nothing that links an approver to a business unit in particular. It's either by role or by user.
Yeah, and you can have multiple approvers such as manager and controller, I believe, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yep. That is the answer to that one. Folks, if you've got any other questions, please just type them in. A couple of other questions. Edgar asks, how do you set up email to approver?
Yeah, so that's also built into the setup, and you can go in and you can your email your approvers. It's pulling that from their address book who's who record. So once you set somebody up as an approver, it automatically will designate their email address from the system as that's how it's going to be received. And then you can also determine like for which activities in that workflow that you want them to receive emails for. And again, that's all from the setup that you do in the original setup out here in the options.
And we've got another question here. Is bulk assign similar to a model after function? I'm not sure I understand that again.
Yep. So model after is that feature I was telling you about that's coming out here shortly, and that's where I can say this user has all the roles. So Joe Smith has all the roles that my new user Cindy Brown needs. Please request all of the same roles that Mike has for Cindy, and then it'll go through that same approval process. It'll automatically grab all the roles and put them in as requested, and it'll actually run the SOD check on those, and then the approver will get the email notification, and then at that point they can approve or reject. And from those screens I showed you, again, you can do multiple requests and multiple rejects all at the same time.
Good stuff. Thank you, Trace.
Yep.
Let me just finish off a few points here. All right. Let me just give you a summary. A couple of things I wanted to say, and I'll then get Mark to summarize his viewpoint, his feelings. We do have a product to enable our customers to review their security, which we call the Q Cloud. This is an audit service. It's a subscription service. This doesn't replace our on-prem SOD tool, which is called Audit Manager, if you're not aware of it. It's a means really of very rapidly looking at security and other issues, particularly if you've got auditors asking you questions. It will also look at your Oracle licensing. We have a large number of clients now asking us to assess this. There is obviously something going on in the Oracle sphere where they're putting pressure on customers to look at their licensing. So we can run an audit of your licensing. And the next phase of this is data privacy, so you can understand what in your JD Edwards system is relevant to data privacy. If you're not aware, there is new legislation coming out, which is just going live in California, where people will have the means, need to have the means to request the answer to the question, what information you're holding about me, and please forget me. So that's the cloud service. UAM, in summary, I think is about efficiency, but it's also about involving the business. It's about a number of tools which enable you to get the business involved in this process. Behind all of it, it's about a tick in the box for the auditors to know what is actually happening and answer that question when the auditor comes in. What security changes you made in the last year? It's all there. All right. But Mark, just in summary, your thoughts and feelings in summary.
Yes, I agree with you, Mike. I think the tool has been a huge success here at Federated Co-op. UAM it helped to empower our business. It's provided a lot of flexibility, standard consistency data. There's no more, missing requests or anything like that. They come fully ready to go, and it's reduced some FTE time as well. We only have one security resource working on this, and the amount of time he spends on it, on user access requests, is very little these days now. So he can focus on other more important work. Around here, it's a consistent process. We've enabled it in 4 groups, so everyone's very happy with it, and we're very happy from an IT side as well.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for coming in and sharing your experiences with other people. We very much appreciate that. I do think it's
my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
That's a pleasure. But if you've got any questions for Mark or for Trace, I'm going to shut this webinar down in a second. So just reply to the reminder you got, and you'll get a reply later. That's all we've got time for today. If you've got any other questions for me, there is my email address. Very simple, Mike W. If you'd like a copy of the slides, email me or reply. If you'd like a link to the recording to give to one of your colleagues, let us know. I hope you found that useful. It's about efficiency, it's about control, and it's about working with our users to give you the best possible tools to achieve these ends. Thank you for your time today.